Well, coming up today on The Breakdown, if you're snowed in today, you are not alone. A powerful winter storm is grinding travel to a halt. We're breaking down what's happening and just how long this could last. Plus, outrage continues after a federal immigration agent fatally shot a Minneapolis man. The second such deadly encounter in the city this month. We'll explain what we know and why it's sparking protests and political pushback. Also, journalist Hunter Gilmore is on a mission to spotlight missing and murdered Black girls and women through her Hunting for Answers podcast. Ahead, how you can get involved in the search. Well, thank you for joining us today, Monday, January 26th, for the inaugural episode of The Breakdown. I'm your host, Brittany, and you're watching the Black Star Network. Here we go beyond the headlines to break down the stories shaping our community, the United States of America, and our world, all from a Black perspective. And in the second hour of this show, we'll spotlight the change makers and explore the culture driving the conversation, because these are our stories, our voices, and our moment. This is The Breakdown. So today in our top story, more than a dozen deaths. People have died as a result of the powerful winter storm that continues to sweep across the country. At least a foot of snow has fallen in 17 states, from New Mexico to New Hampshire, grounding flights, paralyzing travel, and knocking out power. Tennessee officials say the storm caused the largest number of power outages in the utility's history. The U.S. Transportation Secretary says airlines are working to restore normal operations today, with hopes that flights could return to normal by midweek. Meanwhile, more than 85 million people remain under extreme cold warnings, and forecasters say dangerously low temperatures could linger for several more days in many different areas. Also, investigators are gathering evidence from the deadly shooting of a 37-year-old man by an ICE officer in Minneapolis. This is the second fatal shooting by ICE this month. Authorities say 37-year-old Alex Preddy worked for the Minneapolis VA healthcare system as an ICU nurse. Multiple videos of the confrontation show federal agents spraying him with a substance and pinning him to the ground before shooting him. The Department of Homeland Security alleged that he approached agents with a handgun and violently resisted when officers tried to disarm him. However, a witness and state officials are disputing that claim. That witness, whose name has been redacted from court documents, say Preddy was killed after he attempted to help a woman who had been pushed to the ground by agents. And President Trump reacted to the shooting in a telephone interview with the Wall Street Journal, saying Alex Preddy had a dangerous and unpredictable gun. He went on to say that his administration is promising to do a thorough investigation on the shooting. Trump also reportedly declined to say whether he thought the officer who killed him acted appropriately. However, he didn't stop there. Trump criticized Preddy for carrying a weapon at a protest and stated that federal agents in Minneapolis have done a phenomenal job. When he was asked how much longer federal authorities would continue to operate in Minnesota, Trump declined to offer a time frame, saying, "At some point, we'll leave." Former President Barack Obama is condemning the fatal shooting of Alex Preddy. He is calling it a heartbreaking tragedy and warning that core American values are increasingly under assault. Both Barack and Michelle urged the Trump administration to change course and work with state and local leaders to prevent further violence, saying this has to stop. The Obamas say federal law enforcement officials have done a difficult job, but stress that Americans expect those duties to be carried out in a lawful, accountable way and in coordination with state and local officials. Also, President Trump is warning Canada today that he will impose 100% tariff if the country goes through with the trade deal with China. He made the threat on his social media, saying if Canada makes a deal with China, it will immediately be hit with a 100% tariff against all Canadian goods and products coming into the USA. In his post, Trump does not make it clear the deal he's referring to between China and Canada. The Canadian Prime Minister issued a statement this weekend saying there is no pursuit of a free trade agreement with China and highlighting its partnership with the U.S. Well, a 31-year-old man in Florida is suing the Jacksonville Police Department, accusing them of using excessive force during a traffic stop. Dwan Ellis says it happened after he had been visiting his toddler son's gravesite. He says he was pulled over for running 2 stop signs. A Jacksonville sheriff officer first claimed to have smelled marijuana on him and then discovered he was driving with a suspended license, so he ordered him out of the car. Shortly after, Ellis says he was handcuffed. While in handcuffs, the officer slapped Ellis 3 times in the face and ordered him to stop resisting.
It's called resisting.
You can't get mad at me because you ain't going together. Stop pushing against it. I'm not doing it.
I just felt bad, like I didn't know how to feel at the time. I was angered. I was hurt.
One word that I think of when I see that video is humiliation. There's no way around it. There's no tactical means of slapping someone who complied with all of your requests. He was handcuffed. He wasn't slapped once. He wasn't slapped twice. He was slapped 3 times while handcuffed.
Well, Ellis was charged with resisting arrest without violence, driving without a suspended license, driving with a suspended license, and cited for running 2 stop signs. He was convicted of resisting arrest in a plea deal where the other charges were dismissed. In Kentucky, the Supreme Court justice representing Fayette County is responding to an impeachment petition filed against her. Justice Pamela Goodwine says she is aware of the petition and rejects what she calls baseless allegations. The statement says she will respond if asked by a House committee, but maintains the petition has no merit and should be dismissed. The petition was filed by Louisville attorney Jack Richardson, who claims that Goodwine should have recused herself from a case. That case involved a 2022 law limiting the power of Jefferson County School Board. Richardson argues that Goodwine has a conflict of interest because she was endorsed by the governor who vetoed the law, a veto later overridden by the GOP supermajority. Goodwine was elected to the state's Supreme Court last November. And Delegate Holmes Norton campaign filed a termination report with the Federal Election Commission on Sunday. Norton has easily won re-election to represent Washington, D.C. every 2 years since 1990, serving as the city's non-voting delegate in the U.S. House. Campaign records show that she raised just $7.50 between January 1st and January 25th. As of January 25th, the campaign reported no cash on hand and is $90,000 in debt to Norton, including a $40,000 personal loan that she made to her re-election committee in June. Also in Georgia, homeowners are protesting a new road project that's forcing them out of their neighborhood. Neighbors fight in Villa Rica. The residents there are pushing back on construction project that would build a road through their community. Residents in the historically Black neighborhood say about 24 homeowners would be forced out of their residencies or lose a significant portion of property if the city moves forward with the current plan. One resident says she is not giving up.
Well, to pay for it, but we don't want to move. My sister and them don't want to move, and they will not.
They've been talking for more than a year saying they don't want this. Residents from Mirror Lake have even come over and said, we didn't ask for this, but yet they have willfully continued to push this forward.
Residents also say there's been a lack of transparency from the city. Back in December at a community meeting, interim city manager Diana DeSantos.
And once completed, the new Mirror Lake connector will connect the Douglas County side of the city to the downtown area on the Carroll County side. Residents in the historically Black neighborhood said about 24 homeowners would be forced out of their residences or lose a significant portion of property if the city of Villa Rica moves forward with that plan. Elected officials say more discussion is needed and is hopeful that the two sides can reach an agreement. Well, a group of French researchers bypassed safeguards at the National Institutes of Health to access data from thousands of children. They ranked ethnicities by IQ scores and used it to publish at least 16 papers promoting discredited claims about racial differences in intelligence, including the idea that Black people earn less because they're less intelligent. The researchers were not eligible to access the data, but one gained entry through a U.S. professor already under NIH investigation. Some of the papers have been cited by AI tools as well. Scholars and historians in Little Rock say a planned lecture series on racism and racial equity was pulled from the University of Arkansas at Little Rock's website amid concerns over political backlash. University officials reportedly feared that conservative lawmakers could threaten state funding over the event titles, including a February lecture on race and the death penalty, and an April conversation about anti-racism and white identity. The university has temporarily removed the History Institute's event listings and says it is reviewing its participation to ensure compliance with state law. Well, coming up on the other side of the break, journalist Hunter Gilmore is refusing to let missing Black girls be forgotten. How you can bring visibility and answers to these cases. Stick with us. You're watching The Breakdown with Brittany Noble on the Black Star Network.
They said the quiet part out loud. Black votes are a threat, so they erased them. After the Supreme Court gutted the Voting Rights Act in 2013, Republican legislatures moved fast. New voter ID laws, polling place shutdowns, purges of Black voters from the rolls. Trump's Justice Department didn't stop it, they joined in. In 2018, his DOJ backed Ohio's voter purge system, a scheme that disproportionately erased Black voters. Their goal, erase Black votes and political power. Yeah, that happened. These are the kinds of stories that we cover every day on Roland Martin Unfiltered. Subscribe on YouTube and download the Black Star Network app. Support fact-based independent journalism that centers African Americans and the issues that matter to our community. They said the quiet part out loud. Black votes are a threat, so they erased them. After the Supreme Court gutted the Voting Rights Act in 2013, Republican legislatures moved fast. New voter ID laws, polling place shutdowns, purges of Black voters from the rolls. Trump's Justice Department didn't stop it, they joined in. In 2018, his DOJ backed Ohio's voter purge system, a scheme that disproportionately erased Black voters. Their goal, erase Black votes and political power. Yeah, that happened. These are the kinds of stories that we cover every day on Roland Martin Unfiltered. Subscribe on YouTube and download the Black Star Network app. Support fact-based independent journalism that centers African Americans and the issues that matter to our community.
Welcome back. In today's Noble Spotlight, $1 and a dream. That's all it took for CEO Evelyn Magley to start the basketball league. She is the first woman to own a professional men's sports league. TBL is going into their 8th season and feeds into the NBA G League. She has an incredible story, and she is here today to tell us more about it. Evelyn, thank you for joining us today on The Breakdown.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Oh, absolutely. It's great to talk to you and learn more about your story. Tell me a little bit about how you got started.
Well, the Basketball League it's a God-given vision that started back in 2018 with an opportunity to use the game of basketball to show love to community. And from that, we've grown from 8 teams through COVID. We started and ended our season that year right before Rudy Gobert touched all the microphones. And we made a decision at that time that we needed to move forward no matter what COVID was going to do in this world. And we tripled in size to 29 teams at that time. And now we have a little bit over 40 teams all across North America. And we also have another league called Basketball Super League that the main teams are located out of Canada.
And that's incredible. And you're the first woman to own 2 professional sports leagues for men, correct?
Yes, that is correct. When I started the league, I didn't know that I had made history because it really wasn't something that I thought, oh, gee, I'm trying to make history. It was more of a need to use this game to reach out. But then I started getting contacted from people all over across America saying, do you realize you made history? And I really felt honored at that time that God would use me in this way.
I want to ask you, Ms. Magley, do you have your camera on right now?
Yes, I do.
Okay, because I just want to make sure that we can see your beautiful face.
Okay.
TBL, you also have the NBA G League. Did you ever see yourself having a pipeline into the NBA?
Well, it's all about opportunities. The basketball league is really all about opportunities. And it was originally thought that here's opportunities for young men that didn't make it to the G League, that didn't make it into the NBA, to be able to use their God-given gifts and talents to be able to play in a game that they love and that they have in their hearts. So the game itself and the vision didn't start that way, but since we began, we now have players that are playing in the NBA that actually started with TBL. And not only basketball players, but we have dancers that started with our Kokomo Bobcats and the Lebanon Leprechauns that are now dancing with the Indiana Colts cheerleaders and also with Indiana Pacers. And we have statisticians that started on our program that we utilized, Genius Sports, and now they're being statisticians for the NFL, Oklahoma City Thunder, et cetera. And we have referees that are using our platform in order to get their reps in and to hone in on their skills so that they can now go to the G League and the NBA. And we've had quite a number of referees now that are in the G League that started with TBL. So yes, the platform started off with the vision to impact those young men that play basketball, but it's so much more.
Tell me more about it. I mean, you often describe TBL as being community-centered.
Yes, our teams are community assets. Our teams are located across the United States, and in each community, they're using that platform as a tool to have the community be able to invest in themselves by using the platform to show their skills. For example, our games are broadcast in over 145 countries on TBLTV.tv. That gives opportunities for advancement for people that are looking for sponsorships to be able to get their local community businesses be seen all around the world. It's just giving people opportunities through a community asset. It's very granular and hands-on. Our players do not just throw a tennis shoe out and a kid said, oh, I've got a tennis shoe, but they're really involved in the community. They're working with nonprofit organizations, Habitat for Humanity, working with the geriatric centers, going out and just reading to young people. So our players are not untouchable. They're individuals that typically are from those communities that the teams are located in, and they're working within the community to use their platform as a tool to be able to enrich other people's lives and not just their own.
And tell us more about the response from the communities that host teams.
Well, the response has been very receptive. When you recognize that there are a lot of communities that will never have an NBA have an NBA team to reside in their town. So when our teams are in these smaller communities, they become a granular, boots on concrete um, uh, entity that is able to help individuals within that community. For example, you can't put a dollar amount on changing lives. When you have these young men that are going into schools, doing youth clinics, we have had a team that they couldn't get, for example, substitute teachers because they were so rurally located. And we have young men that have their master's degrees. They're not
Wow.
just playing basketball because they don't have anything else to do. This is something that's a passion that they have, that they're educated young men that are able to bring so much more to the community than just basketball. So we've had young men that have become those substitute teachers because they're now in those towns and they're able to be seen in a different way off the court than just on the court. And they work within those communities and they bring so much. So yes, our teams are so much more than just basketball.
And tell us about the intentionality behind developing good players, good people.
Well, we have our players, number one, we have, for example, we have something called our combine that's going to be held on Saturday, January 31st, and on February 1st. It's a combine where the young men come and they try out for our teams that we have over 40 teams coming from across the nation to come in and look at these young men and give them opportunities. But we also have something called the interview. The interview is intentional in that it gives the young men an opportunity to be seen off the court. So they come into an environment that is a business atmosphere where they get to interview the teams get to interview them, and then they're able to learn more about that this is a business. It's not just on the court. It is actually a business, and it helps to prepare them for those moments when they're no longer on the court playing, but looking to get a job, interview for other opportunities in their lives. We have life skills classes that we have within our teams. And then we have our financial literacy program through the National Financial Educators Council that allows them to be able to come take courses to become certified financial education instructors. And that is through our partnership with the NFEC. We had over 114 young men that participated in that last season. And every season it gets more involvement because they understand that we see them as people, not just an athlete, but I see you as a person. And I know that you're so much more. So we invest in that in them so that they can grow, learn, mature, and be financially literate.
Tell us more about maybe some of your favorite stories of the players and why it's so important to focus on financial literacy and life skills.
We had a game. It actually made it onto various networks. And we had a game where we had a referee that literally had a heart attack on the court. We had nurses, et cetera, there because each team's required. But a young man that was playing in the game that night, Miles Copeland, jumped up and ran across the court and took his vitals. I mean, he got to him so quickly and resuscitated this gentleman for 25 minutes until the EMS was able to get there and literally saved his life. And in that instant, anything that would be said that there's issues between referees and players, everyone, that instant changed so many lives because people began to see that we're all in this together in life. And that young man was a player that wasn't even supposed to be at the game because he couldn't work weekends because he was a fireman, but they allowed him to come because it was in the playoffs. And he came and ran across that court and literally saved this man's life. In fact, the man said if he had been at home or even with his fiance, he said he would have died because she didn't know CPR. And so from that, this weekend, we're going to have free CPR AED classes during our combine draft and meetings that we have, where the community can come in and learn CPR and AED training because it saved a life.
Wow.
And Miles Copeland every year comes in and teaches that as we have our annual meetings. And it's helped him to build a foundation called the Glass Heart Foundation. That now he is teaching CPR and he calls it on the court training. So there are many instances of players that have done miraculous things in communities that I could share on. The list goes on and on. Changing a young man's life, where a gentleman came up to me and said, you know, who are you? Are you the CEO? And I was like, oh my goodness, what is he going to say to me? Oh my goodness, because you never know. And he said, I want to talk to you. I said, yes, sir. He said, I want to tell you, I don't like basketball. I hate basketball.
Okay.
Okay. I'm sorry. I guess I'm glad to know that. He said, but I want to tell you something. About 6 months ago, our grandson, we were losing him. He was depressed. Couldn't figure out what was going on in his life. His grades went down. He didn't even want to go to school. Did you see that player right over there? I'm like, looking at him like, yes. He said, my son went to a basketball clinic, and that young man told him, you've got gifts and you've got a life and your life is worth it. And all I know is I hate basketball, but I'm going to be at every game because I got my grandbaby back. I got my grandbaby back. And it's because of the young men that you have in this league that they impressed his heart and was able to get and connect with this young man, unlike even the family could. And I have 100 stories of that because, you know, these young men have so much power in their lives. And it's not just for them to be a star. And if they can understand and see that it's not about you on the court being that star, but you're a star regardless. Because when you speak into someone's life, that can change the destiny of an entire family. And that's what makes the basketball league different. We're hashtag a different league because we see these young men. We don't have team owners. We don't have team owners. We have what's called team market owners. They own the market, but they don't own these young men. This is not slavery. That culture has to change, and somebody has to do it. And one of the first things that I thought of, because I have 4 young children. I had 4 young children myself, now grown up to they're completely adults with grandbabies. I never liked that owner, like you own them. Nobody owns you. You're a gift from God. You have purpose in your life, and you're more than just an athlete. So we have team market owners. Our culture is we're TMOs. We have team market owners. They own the market, not the players. And then they're giving opportunities for the players to not only play basketball, but to give their lives back to their communities. And that's what makes us different.
Well, we are incredibly inspired by your story and the work that you do in the community. Evelyn Magley, thank you so much for joining us, the CEO of the Basketball League, right here on The Breakdown.
Thank you so much, and many wishes to you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. And for you folks at home, do you know someone in our community who deserves the Noble Spotlight? We would love to know your noble thoughts, so please just contact us. We have more on the way for you today on The Breakdown. We'll take a break. See you soon.
They said the quiet part out loud. Black votes are a threat, so they erased them. After the Supreme Court gutted the Voting Rights Act in 2013, Republican legislatures moved fast. New voter ID laws, polling place shutdowns, purges of black voters from the rolls. Trump's Justice Department didn't stop it, they joined in. In 2018, his DOJ backed Ohio's voter purge system, a scheme that disproportionately erased black voters. Their goal, erase black votes and political power. Yeah, that happened. These are the kinds of stories that we cover every day on Roland Martin Unfiltered. Subscribe on YouTube and download the Black Star Network app. Support fact-based independent journalism that centers African Americans and the issues that matter to our community.
If in this country right now, you have people get up in the morning and the only thing they can think about is how many people they can hurt, and they got the power, that's the time for mourning.
For better or worse, what makes America special, it's that legal system that's supposed to protect minorities from the tyranny of the majority.
We are at a point of a moral emergency. We must raise a voice of outrage. We must raise a voice of compassion. And we must raise a voice of unity.
We are not in a crisis of party versus party. We are in a crisis of civilization, a human rights crisis, and a crisis of democracy itself. And guess what? You've been chosen to make sure that those that would destroy, those that would hate, don't have the final say, and they don't ultimately win.
What's happening? This is your man, Motown recording artist Kim. You are watching the Black Star Network.
Welcome back. The toy giant Mattel partnered with autistic-led Autistic Self-Advocacy Network to create a new Autistic Barbie. Autism is a lifelong neurodevelopmental difference, meaning autistic children grow into autistic adults. The doll features a tablet with an augmented and alternative communication, or AAC app, noise-canceling headphones, and a sideways gaze design elements meant to reflect how some autistic people communicate and experience the world. Supporters say the doll represents a meaningful step toward inclusion while also sparking broader conversations about authentic representation.
They said the quiet part out loud. Black votes are a threat, so they erased them. After the Supreme Court gutted the Voting Rights Act in 2013, Republican legislatures moved fast. New voter ID laws, polling place shutdowns, purges of black voters from the rolls. Trump's Justice Department didn't stop it, they joined in. In 2018, his DOJ backed Ohio's voter purge system, a scheme that disproportionately erased black voters. Their goal, erase black votes and political power. Yeah, that happened. These are the kinds of stories that we cover every day on Roland Martin Unfiltered. Subscribe on YouTube and download the Black Star Network app. Support fact-based independent journalism that centers African Americans and the issues that matter to our community. They said the quiet part out loud. Black votes are a threat, so they erased them. After the Supreme Court gutted the Voting Rights Act in 2013, Republican legislatures moved fast. New voter ID laws, polling place shutdowns, purges of black voters from the rolls. Trump's Justice Department didn't stop it, they joined in. In 2018, his DOJ backed Ohio's voter purge system, a scheme that disproportionately erased black voters. Their goal, erase black votes and political power. Yeah, that happened. These are the kinds of stories that we cover every day on Roland Martin Unfiltered. Subscribe on YouTube and download the Black Star Network app. Support fact-based independent journalism that centers African Americans and the issues that matter to our community.
Well, Hunting for Answers is a true crime podcast hosted by journalist Hunter Gilmore on the Black Effect Podcast Network. The show centers the stories of missing and murdered Black women and girls, cases that are too often overlooked, underreported, and unresolved. Gilmore's mission is simple but urgent. Bring visibility to these cases, amplify the voices of families still searching for answers, and demand accountability from the systems meant to protect us. Hunter Gilmore joins us now. Thank you so much for joining us on The Breakdown.
Thank you, Brittany, for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
So tell us a little bit more about your background and how you got into this work.
Yes. So I am a journalist and producer, and I have worked for a lot of publications and news organizations covering a lot of disparities that take place in the Black community. And one of them that always pops up is the silent epidemic of missing and murdered Black women and girls. So Hunting for Answers is a media initiative, an advocacy media-driven initiative. And our goal is to really just bring more attention to these cases and also create safer communities so we see fewer and fewer of these instances happening in our communities.
And you've spoken directly with families and investigated real cases. Tell us what patterns keep showing up.
Absolutely. So one of the most consistent patterns that I see with families is their dissatisfaction with how the investigations have gone. And this is regardless of if the case has arrests or convictions. A lot of families feel that the stages early on weren't really handled in the best ways. So this could be misrepresentation of victims or facts, or just simply not getting the right attention, media not picking up these stories and getting the attention that they need.
Can you tell us about one case that really stands out to you?
One case that really stands out to me actually happened here in Atlanta, Georgia, and it's the case of Alani Lenore. And I spoke with her mother, and the case really hit close to home because it's a Fulton County case, and it's one where just from the very beginning, it was just not really handled in the best way, and justice for Alani has yet to truly be served. In her case, they had 3 suspects that they arrested and then ended up letting one go because he requested to go to his father's funeral. And after that, there was a manhunt that basically had ensued for this gentleman. And so time and time again, what we're seeing, that happens in a lot of cases is, people being let off, people being just not taken as seriously. The threats and the violence that do happen against individuals, it doesn't seem to be taken as seriously from the institutions.
And according to the FBI National Crime Information Center data, over 36% of all women and girls reported missing in 2022 were Black, totaling 97,924 people. Despite comprising only 14 to 15% of the U.S. female population, Black women and girls are disproportionately represented in missing person cases. Roughly 90 to 98,000 reported missing annually in recent years. Just explain to us just how big of a deal this is.
Well, clearly from the numbers we see, the gap points to a larger systemic issue. And it's a national problem that needs a national response. So that includes everyone from our local community members, to our law enforcement, to our media and partners elsewhere, just really bringing light to this issue that's going on. It's has been dubbed the silent epidemic, and it truly is, because you turn on the news and yes, we have a lot of things that are going on, but it seems that this case or cases involving missing and murdered Black women and girls don't make the priority of the news unless the case is going viral or unless there's been, a lot of public attention towards the case. And it shouldn't be like that. Cases should be taken seriously and handled with respect from the beginning.
Let's dig into that a little bit more. How does limited or delayed media coverage impact the investigations? And I guess what emotional toll does that lack of attention take on families when a Black woman or girl goes missing?
Absolutely. Well, if the public doesn't know that a case is going on, then because there's little or no media coverage, then tips don't come in. Memories can fade and witnesses move away. Someone may have seen something or heard something at the time and didn't realize that it was important, unless a news article or some type of news report was presented, and then they're like, oh, I did see something, and they're able to report that. But without the coverage in the beginning and the awareness of just what's going on in our communities, then there's no way of really knowing and being able to help as community members.
I know that you've taken this conversation directly to college campuses, including HBCUs like Clark Atlanta. What are students telling you about dating and safety and the risks that they're navigating right now?
So during a recent session, clinical licensed social worker Veronique Esther had asked the students a question, and she asked them something to the effect of, how many of your parents taught you how to date or just cultivate healthy relationships? Raise your hand. And when I tell you, not a single hand went up in the room. Everyone was just silent. And it was such an eye-opening moment, because that really shows us that we have at least a whole generation of young people who aren't being equipped with the tools to date properly and to know and understand, one, what healthy relationships look like and how to be in one and cultivate one yourself.
Do you have some practical warning signs or safety strategies that people, especially young women, should actually be paying attention to when they're dating?
For sure. You want to absolutely make sure that you're sharing your location with at least one trusted family member or friend. Just all of us all together need to be checking in on loved ones regularly and speaking up when we see threatening or violent behavior. One of the topics that I'm going to be diving into in an upcoming series is the bystander effect, and how sometimes we see some of these things taking place and we don't really know how to interact or how to intervene. So, just making sure that we do support those who may need a voice and someone to stand up for them. Because of course we know that prevention and protection starts with us. And that's how we're going to be able to just create safer communities, safer campuses across the country and beyond.
And Hunter, on top of that, what needs to change in how law enforcement and the media and communities respond to these cases?
I think overall, we need to make sure that we're remembering that these are real people in real lives that are being impacted by these everyday situations. A lot of these stories start off as literally people going about their normal day. They're, on their way to work, or they told a loved one they're running off to the grocery store real quick and they'll be right back. It's these things that seem so ordinary to us in our everyday lives, but these are the missed moments where tragedy can sometimes strike.
Gilmore, any final thoughts for our audience today?
Yes. Overall, I just want to remind the audience to, whenever you see a missing person flyer or poster or anything, just at the very least share it, because a lot of families and loved ones, they are struggling to get, viable attention for their loved ones. So I think altogether, if we just share posts when we see them, be aware around each other, look out for one another, check on one another for sure. I think that's what I would say.
All right, Hunter Gilmore, you can catch her on the Hunting for Answers True Crime podcast. It's on the Black Effect Podcast Network. We want to thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
If in this country right now, you have people get up in the morning and the only thing they can think about is how many people they can hurt, and they got the power, that's the time for mourning.
For better or worse, what makes America special, it's that legal system that's supposed to protect minorities from the tyranny of the majority.
We are at a point of a moral emergency. We must raise a voice of outrage. We must raise a voice of compassion. And we must raise a voice of unity.
We are not in a crisis of party versus party. We are in a crisis of civilization, a human rights crisis, and a crisis of democracy itself. And guess what? You've been chosen to make sure that those that would destroy, those that would hate, don't have the final say, and they don't ultimately win.
Hey y'all, welcome to The Other Side of Change, only on the Black Star Network and hosted by myself, Rhea Baker, and my good sis, Jamira Burley. We are just two millennial women tackling everything at the intersection of politics, gender, and pop culture.
And we don't just settle for commentary. This is about solution-driven dialogue to get us to the world as it could be and not just as it is.
Watch us on the Black Star Network, so tune in to The Other Side of Change.
And if you want to represent the Black Star Network beyond the screen, we want to tell you how you can do that. You can just go to shopblackstarnetwork.com, where you'll find official Black Star Network swag, from hoodies and t-shirts to crew necks and other essentials. It's a way to support the network and show pride in Black-owned media wherever you go. But it doesn't stop there. When you shop at the shopblackstarnetwork.com, you're also supporting a growing collection of Black-owned businesses featured on the site. From apparel and accessories to unique gift items, you can discover brands doing incredible work and keep your dollars circulating in our community. So whether you're shopping for yourself, looking for a gift, maybe even planning ahead for Valentine's Day, it's all in one place. Media support and community investment combined. That's shopblackstarnetwork.com. Support the network, support Black-owned businesses, and please support the culture. So that's going to do it for us today on The Breakdown. Thank you for spending part of your day with us. Please be sure to keep the conversation going online. We also want to hear from you. Please send us your questions, your story ideas, what's happening in your community. I'm easy to find online, The Noble Journalist. And don't forget, we'll be right back here tomorrow with more news, more context, and more voices that matter. For more news, special coverage, and on-demand content, you can also visit blackstarnetwork.com and check out everything happening across the Black Star Network. I'm Brittany Noble. Again, follow me online, and thank you for watching The Breakdown.